And my mom got out of the car and she's like, when I get out of the car, you're going to get out and you're going to fight them one on one. And if you don't win, when we get home, watch what's going to happen to you. I was afraid of this lady, okay? Like, my mom's all like, oh, you guys think you're tough, you think you're this, fight her one on one. If whoever gets in, I'm gonna beat you up. And I don't know if they thought it was a game or my mom was joking or what, but I started hitting the first moment that they stepped down into the curb. I was already fighting. I beat each one of them up because I was more afraid of my mom than I was of these strangers. So my name is Rose, and I love dinosaurs. No, just kidding. No, but I was born in San Diego, California. I was raised in northern San Diego, and that's where I spent most of my time. I was born into a small family, sort of, and I had an older brother, and my mom had three children total, my brother, myself, and a younger sister. We're all about 3 to 4 years spaced apart. Also, when I was about uh, nine-ish, my mom adopted four of my cousins that were my mom's brother's kids. And that's like kind of what helped me change my life and shape me into who I am today. So my story is not all like, hope and oh my God, like, it's just all over the place sometimes. I was the first girl, oldest girl. Um, and usually in Hispanic families, we are usually the ones that help our parents, help with the children, help with chores and the house things and everything. So it was like a lot of responsibility on my end. So I just kind of always helped out. Well, at least that's what I thought I was doing. But now that I'm older, I realized that it was like if I was another mom because I did so much. And not only did I do so much, but I sacrificed a lot. And just it was a lot. So I think because of what I've been through and the things that has happened to me, I'm who I am today, which I don't regret anything because I love myself today and I'm very proud of myself and the things I've done and where I've come. So I'm super excited. But um, yeah, so it basically started when my mom got the kids. I always had a quiet life, and it was just my sister and my brother and my parents. But my dad was a little abusive towards my mom, so it was always that little thing, with the family that they had problems with my dad or with my mom because we were constantly like fighting or the family was being pulled this way or that way. But when my mom got the kids, my grandma was more involved and she would take us to her house or my mom would drop us off so she could go to work and we would be at my grandma's. But grandma's is usually like where all the cousins are, all the family is all the time. And so my grandma wouldn't just watch us, but she would watch other cousins, like two of my aunts, their kids were there, and my uncle's kids were there. So there was probably a total of like of 20 kids sometimes, like in this little like house, like two-bedroom house. But I don't know what it was about me that they would be like, hey, like you come here and help me do this or you do this. And it was always me. It wasn't like the rest of them. And I had two other cousins that were way older than me, but I was always being picked. Um, I believe now that it was because maybe my grandma didn't like me. I know that my mom, when she was younger, she had a rough life. My grandma had put her in an orphanage. So it was like, she only picked her up because she needed someone to take care of her new kids. And so, that's probably where the trauma started. Maybe, I don't know for sure. But um, so my grandma would always pick on me. And out of all the other girls that were there, I was the one doing everything, making breakfast, making lunch for everybody, getting things ready for schools and making sure that the car was clean so we can all go in the van. And she would drop us off in the morning and we would all go to school. And she would like, very Christian woman, but she would make us pray like the whole way. It was like maybe like 4, 5 different schools we were all being dropped off at. And during that time, from the moment we entered the van, we were praying. And we prayed for everything, like everything. You seen a bug, like we pray for that too. And so yeah. And we would just pray the whole way. And during that time, I remember my uncles were in prison, so we would pray about them. We would ask God to protect them, to get them out, and all the, I don't know, I was a kid, so, but we prayed about everything. And I was usually the last one to get dropped off at my school because it was closer to her house. So I would be the whole turnaround. So, my praying is pretty good in Spanish. So it's like, but after that, we would just like go home. We would ride the bus to go back home, and I would make sure we all got on the bus. And when my mom got my new siblings, we would all ride the bus home. So we would make sure that we were there, and they picked us up on time, and we all got in. If not, like I got in trouble. And so I made sure we were all on that bus. Like I would argue with the staff and everything because at this point, like I was basically their mom, and they listened to me because, I mean, not only did they have to because my mom told them to, but because I was always the one taking care of them and making sure that we were all like ready. So, yeah, at my grandma's, it was sometimes hard because my aunt, her house, she had children, and she would buy stuff like, say she went to get pizza, and her kids would be eating a slice of pizza in front of us, and they would be like, "This is my pizza, you can't have none. My mom said you cannot have any." And I'd be like, "Okay." And when they would like put it in the fridge, I would go and like take a bite, and she would get mad. Or like her Pepsi, she would tell us before she would leave, be like, "If you touch my Pepsi, you guys will get in trouble." And she would like yell at us and get mad. And I'd be like, "We're just kids. Like, it's just a Pepsi, those 2-liter Pepsis." That's probably the reason I hate Pepsi and pizza. But I can't. Like, me and pizza are not friends. But it was just like those little things, And I guess it kind of hurts you as you get older because you don't like, why would they do that to you? You're just a kid. And she would like have, I don't know how much laundry this lady could have, but maybe months worth. And my grandma would get it all and put in a pile in the living room. And she would tell her kids like, "Hey, like come help separate your laundry." But usually I was the one that separated all the laundry. And I was like, "But this isn't even my clothes. Like, it's not even my siblings' clothes. Like, I got to do this at home. Now I got to do it here too." So we would just like this mountain, like I would tackle it and like separate all the clothes, all the socks, and like make sure everything like socks were not inside out and the clothes. And it was just like one thing after another. And so it was always all the chores were like dependent on me. And it wasn't even my house. But because we were there all the time, and somehow it was my responsibility because it was all of my siblings were there, it was just like one thing after another. And I mean, I'm a good cleaner, so I mean, I guess it worked out. But I don't have any pink clothes that was white at one time, so that's good. And so yeah, it was just very like hectic sometimes. But when it came to like birthdays, at least we were all in one house, so it was a lot easier to like get a cake and be like happy birthday. So that was like the fun part, I guess. And I was able to like hang out with my cousins and be able to like know them because we were always together. And growing up, you really need that because when your parents are like all over the place or they're working all the time, like you need someone to be able to talk to and stuff like that. But it was just even worse sometimes because my cousins were with me. I was chubby. I was like really big, chubby cheeks. I'm light skinned, and all my cousins, most of them are like, we're Hispanic. So they were more like brown and lighter brown with darker eyes, dark hair. And I looked like a white girl. So they would make fun of me. And they'd be like, oh, no one's gonna like you. You're never gonna have a boyfriend. Oh, your lips are too small. You have big eyes. Oh, you have colored eyes, so you're ugly. And I always thought I was ugly for the longest time. I was ugly. It hurt a lot because I didn't know how to tell my mom. And even if I told her, she just like, oh, they're crazy. That's not true. And one day we went to go take my mom something for work, and we were in the car, and I told my grandma, oh, I'm gonna go get her. That's my mom. And I was excited because I was like, that's my mom. And my grandma's like, no, you can't get out of the car. You have to wait. I'm gonna send your cousin to get her. And I was like, but that's my mom. And she's like, no, your cousin's gonna go. And I was like, okay. And I was dressed, I guess, in the clothes that my mom had gotten from her job. And it was like a resident that had passed away. So she had brought in her clothes home, and I was wearing it because I was fat and nothing fit me. And she said she could never find clothes at the store that fit me. So I always wore hand-me-downs, or I wear dresses that were for older ladies. And it was just like always rough because I believed I was ugly. And that day when she came out to the car with my cousin had like a cookie or something that someone had gave her inside. And she came out and she was like, I got a cookie. And I was like, oh, like, Mom, did you get us cookies? And she's like, no, she said something, and I don't really remember, but my grandma told her she wanted to get down, and I told her no. And my mom started yelling at me and telling me, like, look at how you're dressed, look at how you look. You think I want people to see that? That broke me. I was like, this is supposed to be my mom. Like, you're supposed to love me and, like, accept me, even if I was ugly, or if I had an extra face or something, an extra eye or something. Like, you're my mom. Like, but it didn't. Like, even my aunts would make fun of me because I was like chubby and things like that, and I always got picked on a lot. And that was like most of my childhood until maybe I was about in 7th grade. That's the day where I had enough. I really had enough that day because I remember I was in 7th grade, and the middle school was right next door to the elementary where my siblings were at. They were all younger than me, about like 3-4 years. And so I remember my school came out an hour before their school. So I went down to a 7-Eleven that was down the hill, and I had about like $3. And back in the day, $3 got you a lot of stuff. I remember I had a hot dog and a Slurpee, and I was going up the hill, and at the middle of the hill, there was these stairs that came from my middle school to the top of the hill where the street was. And at that time, mind you, I was a chunky little girl, and I had injured my foot. And my mom put me in a post-op shoe, which is this ugly black shoe with these Velcro things. And I had a regular shoe. And the doctor told her, hey, she can't have weight on her. So no backpack, things like that. And we had to carry our books at the time for school. And textbooks were like ginormous. So I remember she bought me a rolly backpack. So not only was I ugly, but I was a big girl. Or at least they said I was a big girl. Now that I look back, I wasn't even that big, but whatever. And I was walking up the hill with my rolly backpack, happy because I had a Slurpee and a hot dog. And these 2 kids, one of them comes and smacks my hot dog, and the other one kicks my backpack into the middle of the road. And I was like, oh my God, I started screaming like a crazy woman. Like, I was just screaming for my life because I was so upset and I was mad. Like, I was so mad. And I turned around, and I had this like little bag that my mom would make me wear that had my, I'm a type 1 diabetic. So I have this bag with my insulin and things I needed just in case, I were to die. And I grabbed this bag, and I just started hitting one of the boys with it over and over and over again. And I'm just like full out, like in the movies where like, ah, I was like that, okay? I had enough that day, and I just went off on this kid, and this other kid that had kicked my backpack. I remember running into the street, grabbing my rolly backpack, and then hitting the other kid with it. My purse flew over there. I didn't even know where it was. This rolly backpack like beat the crap out of this kid. Like, I'm sorry, but I had my day that day. And when I finished, these kids were like, you know, on the floor, grabbing themselves, like holding on to themselves. And I was like, don't you ever do it again. And I was like, like I was crazy. I don't know what got into me that day, and that day was enough. So that's when I decided I want to be a gangster. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I did. I was tired. Like, I was done. I just didn't want to be picked on no more. I didn't want to be bullied. Not only was I being bullied at home, but I was being bullied at school. People made fun of me because of the way I looked and how I dressed. I mean, I showered, I'd smell good, but they were still mean kids, you know? And so it was just I was done that day. And I remember going home after we went to the house, and I was wearing this dumb long skirt that my mom made me wear. And I told my mom, I don't want to wear this no more. I want pants. And she told me that due to our religion, we couldn't get pants. And I was like, but my sister has pants on. Like, they have pants on. And she was like, it's because you're fat and nothing fits you, and I can't find clothes for you at the store. And I was like, okay. So I just like, would wear sweats and like shorts, like basketball shorts. And I felt like it made me look more like a loser. So I ended up stealing some pants from my cousin, and they fit me. They didn't buckle all the way, but I mean, they fit me. So I would just wear a longer shirt, and like I felt cool because I finally had pants on, and like I looked like the other kids with regular clothes, and I was feeling better about myself. And I was like, I just kicked some butt. Like, you can't tell me nothing. And so I started to make more friends and be more confident, because I was like, man, like I just beat up two kids. Like, who else can do that, you know? So I felt cool. I felt tough. You couldn't bring me down. And so that's when I just like was on top of the world at that point. But I really wasn't, because at home I was still being like tortured and stuff. So it wasn't like, the best. But I mean, it was a little bit better at school. And I started to see like boys would look at me, but they weren't never like, hey, like, what's up? I had a lot of friends, but never like boyfriends or nothing. I guess I wasn't really looking either, because I was always occupied with everything that was going on at home and my family and everything. So it was just like I didn't have time for myself, basically. And everyone had activities. I remember my younger brother had karate, and I would go with him. And then my other brother had like band and things like that. And I also had band, but I played the flute for 3 years in middle school. So that's probably why I got made fun of too, because, all the other stuff I carried. But it was just like, one thing after another. And at home, I was basically taking care of my siblings. I was like making dinner. I learned how to cook. Most of my recipes, you think my mom gave them to me, but I kind of just made them up as I went. Summer breaks, we learned how to cook with what we had. We didn't have a whole lot, so we kind of figured it out. And I remember when I was in 5th grade or 4th grade, there was this lady. She did couponing, but she worked at the school at my elementary, and I love her so much. She would bring us Rice Krispies on Fridays for all the classes, like mainly the like 4th and 5th graders. And she would bake them at her house, and she would make snickerdoodles and stuff like that. And she would always bring them, and I would always like try to be first in line, because I never had that at the house. And so I would always like, and when my mom got the kids, like the whole school knew about us, like all the teachers, everybody, because of the situation where they had come from and everything. So almost all the staff knew us, and they would always be like, hi, how are you guys? Or how's this? How's that? And, it was kind of like cool. They noticed me, but it was all for the wrong reasons. So this teacher aide, she would, with her coupon, she would bring like Gerbers for my little brother when my mom got him, and she would bring like baby cereal, formula, canned food, and it wasn't even the nasty canned food. It was the good kind, like the good corn and like the stuff that was edible. And she would always give me bags, like 3, 4 grocery bags, and they were full of food, and they were name brand cereals, name brand food, and I was always so excited to go home. And even though I had to carry all this stuff on the bus, like I didn't care. Like I was like, we're gonna eat good. And it just sucked because when I'd get to my grandma's house, she'd be like, "Oh, what did you bring?" And I'm like, "Oh, the lady gave us all this stuff." And she would take all the good stuff, all the snacks. And back in the day, it was like the foot by the foots. And if you grab the like little candy, you can put it on your tongue and it would like do a stamp, like a tattoo. And like I love those things, and we were all like, "Look what I got," you know. And it was like something that helped us because we didn't have a whole lot. So looking forward to those little snacks was like, yes, you know. And she would take them, and I'm like, "But those are mine." And she would give them to the other kids, to my aunt's kids that lived there. And I started getting smart, and I would raid the bags when I got them. I'd go to the bathroom, take out all the good stuff and put it in my backpack, and then tell my brother, "Hey, give me your backpack, like I got some stuff." And she would make us one time she made me a bag of snickerdoodle cookies. Those are my favorite, but only her cookies. Her cookies are the best. And I was like, "Hey, we got cookies." I was like, "Put them in your bag and put your folder over it." I was like, "So when we get to our grandma's house, like she won't see it." And he's all like, "Okay." So we would sneak the good stuff. And I would tell my mom, "She didn't give us nothing. Like, I don't know." I was like, "Maybe because I told her, like, my grandma takes it." And she's like, "Why would you do that? Like this?" I was like, "I don't know." And that's when I started lying. I never lied to my mom. I was very honest with her and would tell her everything, even if I knew I was going to get in trouble. And I wouldn't tell my brother. I'd be like, "If you get in trouble, just stay with me." And he would be like, "No, no." And I was like, "No, just stay with me." I was like, "I did it." And so when my mom would go to work, I'd be like, "Hey, where's all the snacks?" And we would eat all the snacks like in a day, because we're like, if we don't eat them, they're gonna find them, and then we're gonna get in trouble. We're gonna get in trouble. So the little boxes, I would break them up at school and throw them away, and just have all the snacks in my backpack. So it was easier to get rid of the trash, and my mom and dad never knew because they were just little pieces of trash. And then where we lived at, there was a 7-Eleven next door. So we would walk over to the trash can and throw away some of the stuff. But we also would sometimes go to 7-Eleven and like steal snacks. I mean, you're not supposed to do that. That's bad. That's bad. But you know, you're kids and you just want stuff. So, you know, it wasn't okay. But you know, sometimes you do what you gotta do. And we just learned to get by, I guess. And um, sometimes we would have to go to like food pantries, and they would give us like all the nasty stuff. Like, who eats corn but that one that's like smashed? Like, that's disgusting. But people eat it apparently, so they would give us that. Sometimes like we would get like expired stuff or like vegetables and fruits that were going bad, but we would just kind of like cut off the little piece and like eat it. We ate a lot of beans and rice. Meats were rare, but we got the cheap ones, you know, like that was okay. And we ate a lot of like eggs and cheese, tortillas, because that was always like really cheap to have. And my mom would go to Costco and buy in those big bulk of rice and beans. And at the time, my mom was working like 2 jobs, and she would help pay for my aunt's things. She would buy stuff for my cousins because their parents didn't have enough. And I feel that's when I started resenting my mom a little bit, because my dad worked to pay all the bills, and we were like my dad's punching bag. So when he was mad, he would like take it out on us. And like mainly, I know my older brother would get a lot of the beatings, just because he was older and he wasn't my dad's biological son. And so my dad would take a lot out on him. And when my brother left, he started doing it to me. So I would take the beatings for everybody, or he would get my other siblings sometimes, but mainly with me and my brother. Um, and he would always like hurt us all the time. And he was just very mean. all the time. Like we would sometimes be sitting at the table trying to eat dinner, and you couldn't talk. You couldn't say nothing because his news were on, and he was watching. It was these two like beautiful Mexican ladies, and I think at 6 or 5, and he would watch it, and he'd be like, "If you say anything, like," and he would throw plates or cups or whatever he could, and so we knew like you don't say nothing at dinner time. And so I would make dinner, I would serve everybody. He always got served first because that's what we were taught, especially I feel in Hispanic families, because the man is always served first because they're the ones that work and they carry the majority of the weight or whatever. I don't know. But it was always him first. And we would like sit around the table and just whatever my mom like made or I made. And yeah, it was just usually that. And as I got a little bit older, like a teenager, I started I started hanging out with the wrong crowd. I thought I was tough. I thought I was cool. And at this time, like I was already like able to like talk to my parents and tell them like I don't want to dress like a loser no more. Like I want to dress like the other kids, and I want to be cool, and like I don't want people to make fun of me anymore. And after my incident in 7th grade when I beat those kids up with my backpack, I thought I was invincible. So I learned to speak up more and say things. And by the time I was like in 8th grade, like towards the end, my mom had already started to decline a lot and get really sick. She she was diabetic, and she had an ulcer on her foot, and it tunneled in, so she couldn't walk. And if she did, like she would be in pain, or her health started to like decline. And she had a lot of like heart issues. She started getting like really swollen, and no one could figure out why. And she was just really sick. So a majority of the household became my responsibility. So anything to do with the house or things like that, I had to do it. I learned how to write checks. I learned how to go pay bills and how to drive a car when I was 14. I was taking kids to school in the car. My dad had this like ugly little van, but I mean, it got us around, so it didn't matter. I was able to take my siblings to their doctor's appointments. I would go with my grandma, but I was doing all the talking because my grandma only spoke Spanish. And so the doctors knew that, they talked to me, and then I would go home and just tell my mom what happened. And so I was just kind of like the other mom. And I know my siblings don't think of it that way because now they're like, they put it how they want to remember it, which is okay, it's fine. But I was just the other mom. And I was very, very angry. I was so angry all the time. And I hated that then my mom would be like, oh, you are in charge of everybody. You do this and you do that. But yet when it came to discipline, my dad was always beating the crap out of all of us all the time. And he was very abusive. And my mom wouldn't say anything. And the money my mom would get, she would give it to my aunt and my grandma so they can like eat and have whatever they needed to pay. Or my grandma would come and take the van from me, and I was like, how am I going to get everyone in school? How am I going to get to doctor's appointments? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I can't walk across the whole like city just to like go to our appointments or go to school. Like, and she'd be like, well, that's not my problem. And she would go and do other errands for my other aunts and do things for other people. And she was very involved in church. And so she was always like, I remember on Saturdays and Sundays was our church days, and she would come get us, and we would go to church with her, and she would like make us sit there the whole entire time. And to me, it was just really boring. Like I hated being there. And I was trying to teach myself how to fall asleep with my eyes open so I could like, fall asleep and be at the service at the same time. Never learned. I would go to the bathroom a lot until one of the ladies like told my grandma like she goes to the bathroom every 5 minutes. And so my grandma like, I was like, man, like lady, like really? And yeah, it was always like, I don't know why she would always like pick on me, like always like, hey, like you do this, you do. It was always one thing after another. And I just was angry. And my outlet was I love to fight. I would not go to school. I started ditching high school. I would pass by the school, didn't enter the school, but I passed by a lot, like every day, just didn't go inside. And I would ditch with my friends and would go do dumb stuff all the time. And to me, it was fun. It was exciting. I loved to do it. And I would go home and I'm like, yeah, like nobody knows what I just did, you know? And I would talk to my brother and I'd be like, hey, like, you know what I did today? Like, you know what happened today? And it was like a rush for me. Like, I loved it. And I love fighting. Fighting was my way of getting back at everybody because I couldn't punch my dad. I couldn't fight him. I couldn't fight my grandma or my aunt. I couldn't, like, you know, so fighting people was like my outlet and I was good at it. So I did it all the time. And I don't look like it, but I loved it. I loved it all the time. And it came to the point where if you looked at me wrong, I would fight you. And the only thing was I did have a lot of respect because in our Hispanic communities, if you don't have respect, like you get beat up. They will send someone to beat you up. So, you know, you mess with my mom, you mess with my siblings, you said anything bad about my grandma or my mom, like we were going to get down right away. I didn't care who you were, how old you were, what you were doing. It didn't matter. Like, you're not going to disrespect my mom. You're not going to disrespect my grandma or my dad or my sibling. Or like, you know, you can't do that. And so it was always like, I would always speak up and I would always, you know, because I wanted to fight someone. So I found that as an excuse to be like, oh, what did you say? And I would like quickly like get into something with somebody. And my mom knew, like, when we would go places, at this time my mom was in a wheelchair, so when we would go places I was always pushing her. I was doing the most. And she would, one time I remember we were at the grocery store and I was like about 15 and I told her, she told me, oh, I forgot this thing, can you go get it? And she had a little grocery basket on her laps and I left her at the checkout stand. And I guess she was like going, or she tried to push herself, and these kids came in and ran into her wheelchair. And they told her, watch out, you stupid B word. And my moms are like, hey, like, you know, and the kids are like, told her off, bunch of bad words. And my mom didn't tell me nothing. I was like, here's what you needed. And I put it in the thing. I started taking everything. I put it on the conveyor belt. And we got ready to pay. When we got to the car, my mom's like, these kids, they said this to me. And I was like, why didn't you tell me? I was so mad. I was like, why didn't you tell me? I was like, I would have told them something. Like, who does that? You're an older lady. Like, you're in a wheelchair. You're disabled. Like, who does that? Point is that I went back into the store and I asked around, like, hey, did you guys see these kids? They're like, oh, yeah. They're like, they went over there. I think they're outside. And I was like, okay. I seen them and I told them, I was like, hey, I was like, you guys ran into a lady in a wheelchair? And they're like, yeah, and they went off that she was a stupid this and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, yeah, knocked them both out. I was like, don't you ever talk about my mom or anybody in general like that again. I was like, we're not having this. We're not doing this. Like, I don't know what your issue is. I was like, but don't ever disrespect my mom again. And it was crazy because my mom was so mean to me. Like, this lady was like, what the, you know, and I was over there like, this is my mom. You can't do nothing, you know. But it was always that. And it was just a respect thing. Like, you're not going to do that. Like, and it was just always all the time. Like, I was just finding excuses to fight people, which is bad. Don't fight people. But this one time, before my mom was not able to drive, she was driving at this time, and I remember I was walking in my neighborhood and I got beat up. I got jumped by like 3 people. And then when I got home, my mom asked me, like, what happened to you? Why are you all messed up? Like, you know, why are you limping? And I was like, oh, I fell. I was like, I was riding a bike and I fell. And she was like, no, you didn't. What happened to you? And I was like, I fell. And she was like, what happened to you? So I was like, I got jumped. And she's like, who did it? Where did it happen? I was like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know. And she's like, no, where did it happen? What happened? Whatever. So I told her. This lady put me in the car, drove me down the street, said, where is it that they did this at? And I pointed over there, and they were still sitting at the benches hanging out. And my mom got out of the car and she's like, when I get out of the car, you're going to get out and you're going to fight them one on one. And if you don't win, when we get home, watch what's going to happen to you. I was afraid of this lady, okay? Like, this lady was like, oh my goodness, like, you were afraid, okay? Because my mom was tough sometimes too when she had to be. So I already knew like how my mom like hit and stuff like that. So I knew it was gonna be bad for me. So it's like, okay, I was like so scared. And at this time it was three girls and a guy. But this was already like an older guy. He wasn't even my age. He was way older. I was only a teenager. And my mom's all like, oh, you guys think you're tough? You think you're this? Fight her one on one. If whoever gets in, I'm going to beat you up. And I don't know if they thought it was a game or my mom was joking or what. But I started hitting the first moment that they stepped down into the curb. I was already fighting. I beat each one of them up because I was more afraid of my mom than I was of these strangers. So I was like, you can't, like, I thought I was cool. Like, I was unstoppable because I felt I had powers. Like, I felt tough. And I just spent most of my life doing that as a teenager. And I feel too that I did a lot of my, like, I used to cuss a lot and say a lot of bad words. And my attitude was always like, you can't tell me nothing, or I was mad. And so I learned to like speak up even though I wasn't supposed to. I stopped letting people mistreat me and say bad things about me or like treat me the way that I had always been treated. So I guess that's what drove a lot of family away or things, because I was just tired of it. I was tired of letting everyone mistreat me and hurt me and constantly use me as their punching bag. So I started just to, become somebody that I wasn't. And I just wanted to be tough to show them that I wasn't their punching bag anymore. And after my mom lost her leg and got like really sick, I just became harder because I had to stick up for my mom. And these doctors kept giving us the runaround. And I started learning, I mean, I knew how to read, but I started being more involved in like physical stuff, like how to learn about heart conditions and about things that she was dealing with so I can help her. When the doctors were talking, I would understand because now I was my mom's caregiver. And so around 17 is when I basically was her caregiver. And I was constantly always at doctor's appointments. I stopped going to school. I stopped hanging out. I stopped doing a lot of things because I needed to take care of her. And so, and not only her, but my younger siblings, they were all still in elementary, middle school, and high school. So if it wasn't for me, they weren't going to get to school. They weren't going to get to doctor's appointments. So, like I said, I was their other mom. And so I gave up a lot of my life to be able to help everybody and be the primary caretaker, I guess. And like my dad had already started another life while still living with us at home. He stopped paying the bills. He stopped providing groceries and all that. And the little money my mom got for her disability and her social security wasn't enough. So we had to like downsize and move and things like that. So we were like, I think we moved like 3 times maybe. And when I was 16, I met a guy. He wasn't the nicest guy, but I just wanted an outlet. I wanted just someone to understand me and just to love me, I guess. And I got pregnant when I was 18 with my first daughter. And this guy beat me up. I was 3 months pregnant with my daughter. And he pushed me down 4 steps. Like they were like a stoop, I believe it is, like in the front of the house. And these steps were like ginormous. And we had gotten into an argument over something that didn't happen. And I know he had hit me. And I was like, why do I let him put hands on me when I'm tough? Like, I beat up guys. Like, what the heck, And I remember I just slapped him. And I was like, don't hit me again. Like, I'm pregnant. And I remember I thought by being pregnant it was going to get me out of my house and into a new life where I didn't have to watch anybody or take care of anybody. And so that's what I was looking for. I just wanted to get out. And I tried to join the Marines. They don't accept you if you have the diabetes, okay? If you have diabetes, you're not allowed. Or I believe it's just medications. You can't be on medications if you try to join the military. So I thought that was my outlet, number one. It was not. So my second choice was like, oh, maybe I could get pregnant and this guy will take care of me and, sweep me off my feet and take me to La La Land. That didn't happen. So I was wrong. But um, I think when I got pregnant with my daughter, that's what saved my life. She, I didn't know I was having a girl. I thought it was a boy. I wanted a boy. So I was like, I'm having a boy. I was convincing myself. And I already had a name picked out and everything. And I remember when I told my mom, oh, well, she went with me actually because, funny story. We were going and I told her, Mom, I don't feel well. Like, I think I need to go to the doctors. Like, this boob is bigger than this boob. And she was just like, okay. And she was like, you probably have a disease. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, I've never had sex before, I told her. And she was like, no, you're lying. And on my 18th birthday was my first time. And it was the first time and my time I got pregnant. So I told her, like, whatever, I didn't come home that day. And she obviously knew that I probably did something like that. And I found out I was pregnant. And that day that I found out, earlier in the day, I had told my friend, my really good friend, like she was my best friend, but she was also part of the life that I was living outside of my home. And she told me, hey, like, let's hang out later. And I was like, I can't. I was like, I got to go tell my baby daddy that I'm pregnant. I was like, so I'll probably catch up with you guys tomorrow or later on in the night. And she's like, okay. And that night, she ended up getting arrested and the people she was with. And that was her first time going and spending a term in jail. So if I would have been there that day, that would have been my fate. I would have been right next to her. And my daughter saved my life. And I didn't take it for granted. I knew that this was like a blessing, that I had grown up in church, regardless of the life I had. I said, this will not be her life. It's not going to happen. And I remember my mom told me, like, you have to abort the baby. My dad told me, I'm not going to accept you like this. And I was like, well, I don't know what you want me to do. I was like, I guess I'm going to have to leave. And when I started getting my stuff to leave the house, my dad yelled at me. He like pulled me and dragged me through the house and told me I wasn't leaving. My siblings got involved and they're like, she's having a baby, like, don't hurt her. And I just like remember like feeling so bad because I was like, I'm about to have this baby, like, or I'm pregnant. I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen now. Like, my dad doesn't want me, my mom doesn't want me, like all this stuff. And I just felt really bad. And I told my daughter's dad, like, hey, like, they're kicking me out of the house. And he's like, well, you can come here, but he goes, like, there's not a lot of room. And he didn't have a big house or nothing. He lived at home with his mom and his sisters. So I was like, I'm just gonna be another person in that house. Like, I'm just gonna be like in the way. Like, they're probably gonna use me as their slave or something. Like, I don't know. I didn't know what to expect. And my dad didn't let me leave. He told me that if I left, that he was going to find a way to get me and that all these things. And I was like, fine, like, I'll stay here. And he's like, what's going to happen to your siblings? Who's going to take care of them? Look at your mom. You're going to get her more sick. And it was just like the guilt he was making me feel. So I ended up staying and still like contributing in everything that they wanted me to do and continuing everything that I was doing before. And my mom was approved for like, I believe it's like SSI, and they pay you to watch over someone that needs help all the time. And that's when I became like an actual caregiver. And I got my certificate in the mail and everything because I did the little classes they offered. And I was pregnant. I got my CPR and I felt cool because I was like, this is real adulting. I was like, I'm an adult now. Like, I got this. And I was like, after this, like, I can get a job after I have my daughter, and like, I can provide for her. I can do all these things. I was like, I don't have to be like another person, like in the system. Like, I can like get out of this. Like, this is my hope. And at 3 months, her dad ended up beating me up, and I remember I got up and I was like holding onto my stomach. I tried to walk home, and he wasn't allowing me the whole way from where we were at to my home, which was like maybe a 10-15 minute walk. He was pushing me, pulling my hair, dragging me like to walk faster, that he was going to tell my dad he didn't want me, that we were done. And I was like, okay, like, just leave me alone. And he wouldn't leave me alone. He just kept mistreating me the whole way home. And I remember when I got to my house, my dad had closed this gate we had in the front of the house. And because we lived in like the wrong side of town, and it was a bad neighborhood, and they were always stealing. So my dad had built this big old gate, and it was locked. And I was like, how am I going to get in? Like, how am I going to get away from him? And I remember I had jumped the fence, and I went to the door and I couldn't get in. And then I seen across the street my brother's friend was walking. And I was like, hey, can you help me? I was like, he's hitting me, he's beating me up, I'm pregnant. I said, I'm pregnant, and he just came across the street, pushed him, told him to leave, that he was gonna go get my brother. And my brother had been in and out of jail. Like, he all had lived a rough life as well. And so they he left. And then when my dad got home, I told him what happened, and he called him on the phone and told him, oh, you think you're a man hitting a girl? Like, come over here. Like, I got you. And he showed up to my house, and my dad like beat him up. And like when the cops came, they took him. And that was the last I've heard of him. And my mom made me get a restraining order on him. And I know he got deported because he signed the papers or something. So that was on him, like, so after that, I didn't have nothing to do with him. I just tried to stay home. I stopped talking to a lot of people. I figured that if I wanted a better life for my daughter, that what I was doing was not correct, and I needed to get my life together, so I was able to provide a better life and opportunity for her. And it was uh, being pregnant was cool because I get to eat everything I wanted. And I guess my mom and dad felt sorry for me because they were constantly like, do you want this? Do you want that? I was like, yeah, I can go there. And I remember we'd go out to eat, and I would like eat for like 10 people, and people would like stop and look at me. And I'm like, oh, I'm pregnant. And they'd be like, okay. And I just had this like glow about me because I felt appreciated, like loved, because they were taking time to like be my parents at this point, because I wasn't, aborting my child. And I told them, like, regardless, like, I'm gonna have this baby, like, deal with it. And I remember my mom called all my uncles and my aunts, and she's like, oh, this girl had this baby, da, da, da. And like, she just like said all these negative things. And after I think it passed, like, she was like excited that I was having a baby. And my daughter was loved. Like, she was really loved. It was the first time I seen my mom like be gentle and have a loving heart, and like talk to her nicely and sing songs. And my dad also, he wouldn't like put her down. He was like, I'm in love with this baby. And I was like so excited because she was getting the love that I wanted, but I didn't ever have. So my siblings were a little bit older. I think the youngest one, he was like 7. And people thought he was my son because everywhere I went, I had him, and I always like did everything with him. And I know when I had my daughter, he was a little like, I felt jealous because I was giving my attention to her, but I also was still with him. And my daughter was just like amazing. Like, she was so beautiful. She was really hairy, but my mom's like, that's gonna fall off. And I was like, oh my god, like, I gotta shave her. But I never shaved her. I just let it fall off. Like, babies are hairy. And like, I just remember being so in love that no matter what you said, you couldn't like hurt me. Like, there was nothing you can do to bring me down. Like, I was just so in love with her that it was the best thing. I was like, man, why didn't I get pregnant sooner? Like my life would have been different. But I was like, she came at the perfect time. Perfect timing because I was already 18 and I was able to be more of an adult because they couldn't like keep bringing me down and like, stuff like that. But my dad was very controlling. So no matter like if I wanted to go somewhere, do something, like I would take my daughter with me and do stuff. But he would be like, if you're not here at 8 o'clock, watch what's gonna happen. If you're not here by this time, wait and see what's gonna happen. I'm like, but I'm already an adult. And you have that mentality like I'm 18, like you can't tell me nothing. Well, that's not how it is with us Hispanics. Like you gotta tell your mom and dad where you're going, what time you're coming home, who you're with, all the stuff, right? So I was like, whatever, like I'm fine, my baby's fine, like it's okay. And when I was before I had her, I was like maybe 7 months pregnant, and a really good friend of mine, he had been in prison for a very long time, and we communicated by writing letters to each other. He knew everything about me. He made me feel like understanding, and he knew my situation, my problems, everything that had ever happened to me. He knew everything. And through letters, you're able to express yourself in ways that you can't in words, because when you start to say something, you get like emotional and you start crying. So, in paper, you're a lot more like, you can say things. And we would talk all the time. Sometimes he would call me and we would talk, and not very long, but still we established this good friendship. And when he got out, I was 7 months pregnant, and he started hanging out with me, and he was trying to change his life and be better. And and his mom thought it was a little weird that he was you know he told his mom we were dating. He never asked me out, okay? And he was just at my house. I thought we were friends, and he never tried anything or did anything to me or forced me to do anything. And I just thought we were friends. And towards the end of my pregnancy, he ended up asking me out, and my mom's like, well, might as well. Like he takes you out to eat. He buys you cheesecake and stuff. I'm like, okay. So the birth of my child, he was there. He cut her umbilical cord. He was there. I had a cesarean due to my diabetes, and she was born a month before her time. And he helped me the whole time. He went with her when they took her in the NICU, during my hospital stay and everything. He drove us there. He took responsibility of my daughter, and it wasn't even his. And he loved her so much. Like this little girl was loved so much that it was hard to get her away from anybody, because everybody wanted to hold her. And then this was basically the first grandchild that his parents were able to have. So they took her in. They would love her. When she got a little bit older, they would make her like little sopitas and like little foods. And they would be like, when is she coming over? On her birthday, they made her tamales so we can have her birthday party. And they were so involved. And I was like, this is what it is to have a family. Like, this is amazing. Like, I was in love. And he was very nice to me, very kind, loving, understanding. And I loved him for that. And I mainly loved him because he loved my daughter. And he was the best thing that had happened to us. And in my life, like, he was the best thing because he helped me through so much of my pain and all that stuff. And we were helping each other. And because he was very well known in our area, we would always get pulled over and harassed and stuff like that by the police. And they would like make fun of him. They're like, oh, this is your family? He'd be like, yeah, man, like I'm changed, like I'm different. This, and they wouldn't believe him. And we were constantly being pulled over. When I was pregnant with our daughter, I think I was like 6 months pregnant, and he was craving pizza. And him and his brother went to the 7-Eleven by the Pizza Hut that we were at. And he was walking back, and I guess he had bought some scratchers, and they were walking back, and I was waiting for the pizza, and the police pulled up on them and tried to arrest them. And I was this big girl with a big old belly, and I was like, hey, like, what are you doing? Like, that's my husband. Like, what's going on? And they, like, I started telling off these police officers, because in my mind I was like, I'm tough, I thought I was tough. And they're like, ma'am, you gotta step over there. I was like, that's my husband. And they were like messing with him, and I was like so mad. And I remember like they started making fun of him and telling him they were gonna take his scratchers because he had won like $26 or something. And his brother, they were like messing with him too. And then finally they let him go, and one of the cops told him, I remember when you were like this big and you had gone to juvie. He was like, I arrested you. He goes like, man, he goes, that's your second baby. And he was like congratulating him and gave him a hug and told him to keep the good job. And I was like, oh my God, these cops are weird. Like, I've never seen this. And after like a little bit, like we were able to get a car, and it was a little Honda. It was so funny. He had lowrider rims on a little 4-door Honda, and it was kind of embarrassing, but it was kind of cool. And he always wanted a BMW, and he's like, I'm gonna get one day. I'm like, okay, sure. And it was great. He was amazing until um, my dad left. My dad left my mom, and we were still living with my parents, but we were renting a room from them. And so I was still able to help my mom, help with my siblings. But then when my dad left, I had to find a job so I can help pay the bills and the groceries and everything. And I was going to school because they told me that I could, it's a certified nursing assistant, and you get paid more by doing that instead of being a caregiver. And you can work in like retirement homes and skilled nursing facilities and hospitals. And I was like, that's the best thing I can do for myself and to get us out of this situation. And what my husband made at the time wasn't enough for all of us. And I told him like, hey, just give me, I think the program was like 6-7 months or something like that, or some, I don't remember, but I was like, just give me that time. I was still working as a caregiver. I was doing little things, and we were trying to figure it out. And I guess he just couldn't wait. And he told me like, it's either me or your siblings. And I was like, I can't leave my mom. Like, that's my mom. That's my siblings. Like, come on. Like, you know us. Like, why would you have me pick? And I guess while I was at school, it was in the afternoon. And during the daytime when my kids, when my daughter was at school, my mom would watch the little one, and I would be doing like caregiving jobs, and I guess he was talking to somebody else. And he ended up kicking me out of the house. And it was the worst time. My second daughter was about to be to almost 2, and I had nowhere to go. And my dad had left. We were renting 2 rooms from his parents' house. They had a beautiful house, and we were there. And he told me, I can't do this no more. Like, you gotta go. And I was like, but I have nowhere to go. Like, my family doesn't talk to me. They don't want me around. Like, what am I supposed to do? Not my problem. I was like, but this is your parents' house. Like, you can't kick me out. And I told my mom, like, hey, like, he just kicked me out. Like, we got to find somewhere else to go. And she's like, what are we going to do? Like, we don't have nothing. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, we got to go. So my aunt ended up letting my mom go stay with her. But since my mom had one leg missing, she couldn't go up the stairs. So my mom took over the garage in her house, and we were there maybe like 2 months the most. But my mom went first. And the week that my mom left, I still had my room in his parents' house. And me and him had one room, and then I had another room where my daughter slept. And I remember I told him, like, let me just get my stuff. Like, they already left. I just need to gather some of my things, and then, like, we'll be gone by, like, next week. And he's like, no, you need to go now. And I was like, what am I supposed to do? Like, well, you're crazy. He's like, no, you need to leave. So he started throwing all my stuff from the top floor to the bottom. And the day before my mom, or that day that my mom, the night before my mom left, we had gotten into an argument, me and my husband at the time. And because I didn't want to leave, I told him, like, where am I supposed to go? And he dragged me from the top of the stairs to the bottom of the stairs. It was maybe like a good 20 steps, but they went like maybe six, and then there was a section, and then there was another like more steps. And he dragged me, and I was on my back the whole time. And then he dragged me through the house to the front. He's like, you need to leave. And he was kicking me out. And I remember I was laying on the floor in the pavement, and he was just hitting me and like kicking me. And he would like just continue to hit me. And all I could do was like block myself the best way that I could so he wouldn't like hit my head. And I remember, I don't know how I looked up and I seen his brothers looking through the window as he was just beating me up. They didn't even be like, hey, stop, or don't do that. Nothing. They just let him continue to beat me up. But I couldn't move. I was like basically paralyzed. I was in so much pain that I couldn't move from, I'm assuming, the stair drag. And my whole back was like red and scratched up, and like I was just horrible. And my mom came out of the room in her wheelchair, and my little brother jumped on him and like pulled him off, and he hit him. And I think that's what got me, like, oh no, like you just hit my brother. And I was able to get up, and I started hitting him, and I was able to throw him on the floor, and he just left. The next day my mom came, and some of the people from her church helped her take the things out of the house and drop it off in front of my aunt's house. And that's how we ended up leaving. But when my mom left, when he started throwing my stuff out, because I still stayed there like a dummy, and I didn't have nowhere to go because my aunt didn't want us at her house. And she said that it was too many people. My mom already had my mom and four of my siblings. And she told us I couldn't go there. So me and my daughter slept in our car for almost a week until my aunt said, well, your cousin just left the house, so you can come stay now. And I was like, okay, thanks. But during the daytime when I had to work, my mom was able to watch my daughters, and I was at work, and then I would shower at the park or like whatever I could, and my mom would feed the girls before I would pick them up. And I would try to like stay there as much as possible and just leave like really, really late. And my aunt would come in, she was like, you can't be here. And I'm like, I have nowhere to go. She's like, well, you can't be here. And so we would have to leave, and it was like hard because I was hurting, I was in pain, I was all these emotions. Like my daughter's dad basically took my cards. He took my money that I had in my wallet. He took everything. So we left broke. We have nothing. And I don't even know how we had money for gas. Like maybe I just had a full tank and it just wasn't going down. But luckily I had just started my job, and I had my certificate. I was like, we're gonna get through this. And I think we did about a month at my aunt's house, and I was able to, with my first like check and the money I had saved up, I was able to get a house, and we ended up getting a house. And it wasn't the best house, but it was enough for all of us to live there. And I had 2 jobs, and I was taking care of everybody. I was able to provide, and I was like doing really good, and like it was going well at one time. And luckily, like a lot of the abuse stopped, and I was just working and providing for my daughters and making sure they had the best that I could. And with my family, they were all going to school, they were finishing, and I was like, okay. And I think the younger 3 were like, one was finishing one after another. So like I think the youngest one was like a senior, and then the other one was like in like 11th and like 9th grade or something. So I stayed throughout the whole time, and I met another guy. But it was nothing serious at first. It was just someone to pass the time, and it was he was he was nice. He was like, cool, but again, I like the bad boys, of course, and you know, I just couldn't leave that life alone apparently. And so I ended up getting pregnant with my third child, and that was that's when we officially got together, and we were actually gonna be together. And so I was like, okay, like, well, let's make this work and let's have this baby. Because at first, when I found out, I was like, oh no, like, I'm having a baby. Like, I can't do this. Like, look what happened with these ones. Like, my third one, like, I felt so bad because I was like, this is my third baby daddy. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, this is horrible. And I know I believed in God. I would always go to church here and there and do stuff regarding, church activities. And my mom started going to church and becoming a Christian and giving her life to God. And my siblings, we were all going because when my dad left, like, we were like, finally, like, we're free. Like, we're able to be people. We can be humans. We can have a life, and we can be normal finally, like, without the control of him. So it was just a big, like, I guess a blessing, if you want to put it that way. And my mom really found herself going to church and having this community behind her that was constantly looking after her. The pastor and his wife would come over, hang out with her, talk with her, know her story, and get to know us. And they were like our other family at one point. And everyone in the church was very loving and kind, and they loved my kids. And they would always like and when you would get to church, like, it's a Spanish church, and their church is a little bit different than like English church. I feel like the vibe is more like, hey. But my daughters would come out to dance with the rest of the little kids from church, and they would like pick them up and dance with them. And they were like so kind and loving there, and it was awesome. And I remember asking God, like, hey, like, this this baby, you're sending it to me for a reason, like, but I couldn't figure out the reason. I just knew that now I had to accept this, and there was nothing I could do because I was not about to, abort my baby. Regardless of how he felt or how I felt, like, we were gonna have this baby regardless. And I found out that my ex-husband had a child, and he wanted he had already had a child, but we hadn't talked in like almost 3 years. He completely like disappeared from my daughter's lives, and so I hadn't known nothing of him. And when he found out I was pregnant, like, all hell broke loose. Like, he was just mad, and he was like constantly calling me. They were trying to make my life impossible. He made me like go to court and do all these things. He was like, I want the divorce. I'm like, you can have it. Like, I don't want nothing to do with you either. And his girlfriend was just very mean, and they were just like trying to figure out how to ruin my life. And they were trying to take away my kids. And I was like, well, good luck, like, it was always one thing after another. And I felt I couldn't catch a break. And I would ask God all the time, like, hey, like, what's going on here? Like, when is it my turn to be happy? And it was no answer, no answer. So I just kind of gave up and started just doing things how I thought I should do them. And it was just constantly like that all the time. And when I ended up having my son, I remember that day I was, I thought I had to use the bathroom, number 2. And it comes out I was having contractions, and I was like going into labor, and I didn't know because my due date was for November 15th. I was supposed to have my cesarean that day, and that's the day that they gave me that I was supposed to go deliver my son. And on November 2nd, I was going through all this things and pressure and pain, and I just thought I had to use the bathroom. And I remember I went to the grocery store. I stocked up on things that I needed for my birth because I was like, the last week I'm just going to rest. And late at night, it was like maybe like 6 already. I had already made dinner, and we are just like getting ready to go to bed. And I had put the kids to get ready to go to sleep. And I remember going to my mom and being like, I'm in so much pain. And I was crying. I threw myself on the bed because I just was in so much pain. And I had so much pressure down low. And my mom told my boyfriend at the time, she's all like, you need to take her to the hospital. Like, she's having this baby right now. And he's like, I have to work tomorrow. And mom's like, you're not working. She's like, she's having a baby. Like, you need to go. And he's all like, okay, let's go. He was not excited or nothing. He was like, I gotta work. And I'm like, dude, like, I'm about to have this baby. Like, you gonna go to work? He's all like, yeah. Like, how are we gonna pay the bills? And I'm like, I'm gonna have this baby, you know. And I don't think he understood. Like, guys, you know, like, come on. And he's like, I gotta go drop off my work keys so whoever drives the truck at work can have the keys to open the doors tomorrow. He's like, I gotta go. We lived in Oceanside, and he worked in Escondido. So he's like, we gotta go. Like, I gotta drop off the keys, and then we'll go to the hospital. And my hospital was like 45 minutes to 50 minutes away from where we lived at. And from Escondido, it was, I believe, almost the same amount of time. And when we get to Escondido and he gets down, he's like, I forgot the keys on the bed. And I was like, really? And it was raining. There was so much traffic. Like, it was just pouring outside. And I remember just like not even wearing my seatbelt because I was like, couldn't stay still. I was like holding on to everything. I was moving. And I was like, you gotta get me to the hospital now. Like, it's coming out. And we get there. They make us wait. We're there for a little bit. And I end up being 6 centimeters dilated by the time I get there. And they offered me to have him normal. And I said no because they had already told me my son was too big and I was going to dislocate his shoulders. So when I had my son, he was 11 pounds, 6 ounces. So he was a big, big boy, but he couldn't breathe. He couldn't breathe on his own. And they ended up putting, they had to put air with him. And every time they would take it off, he wouldn't breathe on his own. And it was just like hard because I was like, it's a baby. Like, I don't want him to die. Like, you know, and I was like in and out of conscience because I had lost so much blood. I was just doing really bad. And then some reason that same week, my mom was going to a church retreat for women, and I felt so alone, and I felt by myself. And at the time, my son's dad like left to go to work, and I was by myself, and the nurses were constantly checking on me, and I was just sad, and I was like a mess because I was by myself. I didn't have my mom, I didn't have my sisters, I didn't have no one, and I felt very alone. And I remember asking God, like, please don't take my son. Like, it's just a baby. Like, I need him. Like, you don't understand. Like, I'm sorry for everything I've ever done in my life. Just please don't take my baby. Like, I need this. I need him. And I remember my mom told me they prayed for you guys at church. They've been praying for you guys. I got discharged from the hospital. I went home without my son. It was hard. I was really broken. I didn't know what was going to happen. I said if my son died that I was going to kill myself. And I kept telling myself that over and over again. And then I was like, but you have kids. Like, are you dumb? And I was just like, I can't, like, as much as I want to hurt myself, I shouldn't, like, you know. And I remember my son's dad's all like, we got to go to church and we're going to pray. And I was like, no, like, my son's at the hospital in the NICU and you want to go to church? And he's all like, we got to go to church. And his cousin would attend the Escondido Christian Church, and we ended up going. And I remember someone came up after they did worship, and they said, there's a message here for somebody. And they said about, they're like, your mom has been praying for you, your grandma has been praying for you, and I've heard the prayers. And just know that you promised me something. And he goes like, and he goes like, I'm a God, like I answer prayers. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I remember going to the hospital after service, and I remember some of the people, when they asked like if you need prayers, like you can go up in the stage and they pray for you. And I remember telling one of the guys, hey, like my son's in the NICU, like I just had a C-section, like I shouldn't even be here. And they prayed for me, and I felt a little bit better, but I really didn't feel as good as I should have. And I remember going back to the NICU and just being so mad. I was so mad. And my boyfriend at the time, my son's dad, he was like, I have to work. I can't leave work. Like I have to be here, because if not, like we're not gonna have this, we're not gonna have that. And I was like, I understand, but I'm going through a lot. Like my daughters are at home. Like I'm here at the hospital. I'm sick. Like I just had a C-section. I'm driving from Oceanside to San Diego every morning. I'm getting kicked out of the hospital late at night. I don't eat. Like I was so sick. And I remember being so mad one day. I said, I, I, I regret it so bad. But I remember being so mad, and I cussed out God. I was so mad, and I said a lot of bad words. And I told him if he was real, he would save my son. And he could take me instead, because my son was just a baby and he didn't deserve to die. That he needed a chance. And I remember that the doctors had told me that day that my son wasn't going to make it through the night, and that he was going to most likely die. And I cussed out the doctors too. I was like, you're not going to talk about my son that way. And all that toughness and everything didn't matter anymore. I was this small. I hated God. I hated him so much. I was really, really hurt that he would allow me to have this baby. That he would give me this rough life that I didn't deserve. That he would hurt me so much and then still take everything I loved. I was mad. I was so angry. I hated everybody. I hated everybody. And I remember the nurses told me that it was change of shift, that I couldn't be there, that I had to go home to go rest, to prepare myself. If anything were to change with my son, that they would call me. And I told them I can't leave. Like, you can't do this to me. And I remember I drove home and I cried the whole way, begging God, just if he was real, he would save my son. That, like, just trade positions with me. Like, I can take it. Like, I'm his mom. I'm supposed to help him. I'm supposed to be everything. And you can't take my son. And I remember putting on like Spanish worship music, and I was just crying my eyes out. And in the back of my mind, I was telling myself, like, God's not real. If he was real, then why did you suffer? Why did you go through all these things? Like, you deserve so much better. And he just hurt you. That's not God. And I was like, okay, like, whatever. I remember going to sleep, and I couldn't sleep. I went to sleep really late, and I had this dream where it was like a fire or something, and through the smoke came this tall, buff looking man, very handsome. And he was holding this girl that was like, looked lifeless, but she was like clenching onto him, like on his like around his neck. And he was just holding her, and her body was just like kind of like flimsy. And in my dream, I remember I just felt so peaceful. And I knew that was my son, and I knew that was me. And when I was pregnant with my son, I had multiple people tell me that I was going to have a boy when I didn't know I was having a boy. And I was like, no, I'm going to have another girl. I already have two girls. I'm going to have another girl. They're like, no, you're having a boy. It's going to be a boy, and he's going to be a pastor one day. And I was like, okay, like me, a pastor, my son? Sure. Like, like I didn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. It was too good to be true. And, I was hot and cold, and I called myself a Christian. And I was like, no, like, you're lying. And I remember when I woke up, I was like, that's my son. My son's going to be a pastor, and he's going to live. And when I got to the hospital, they moved my son to another room. And they're like, he took a turn. He's breathing. We took the oxygen off of him. And I was like, oh my God, like, God is real. Like, is God, like, really? Like, you, come on. Like, I couldn't believe it. And I remember, like, just being so grateful. And I had this, like, big relief rush over me. And I was like, prayers work, and things happen for a reason. It was just God testing me or something. I don't know. You come up with all these things, and you just tell yourself like, whatever, okay. And I was just excited. I didn't care how it happened. I just cared that my son was breathing on his own, and he was gonna make it. I was so excited. I was like in love all over again. Like, it was the best feeling in the world. And I remember my grandma told me, hey, my pastor wants to come and talk to you. He wants to pray over you and the baby. And I was like, okay. I was like, yeah, they just moved my son. I was like, we can have visitors now. I was like, so yeah, tell him to come. And he comes over, and I go get him. And I'm like, hey, my son's breathing again. Like, and I told him what I did. I was like, I feel so bad. But, I guess that's what it took for God to be like, here you go. And like he's over there, and he prays over my son, prays over me, and I could feel the presence of God. Like, it felt beautiful in that room at that time, at that moment. Like, everything was just, even the sun was brighter. Like, there was so much light coming into this room. It was like beautiful. And he turns and looks at me, and he's like, you promised God something, and you said a lot of things. Are you ready for what's about to happen? And I was like, about to happen? Like, huh? Like, what are you talking about? He's all like, I don't know. He's all like, like he was explaining to me that this is what the Holy Spirit told him. And he told me, he's all like, just be ready for what's about to happen. And I was like, okay, whatever. He left, and I was just enjoying my son. I was able to hold him at this point. He had like this light because he had jaundice. And so I was able to hold him. They have this new thing. So they just put in a blanket, and you can hold your baby. And I was just like in the moment, loving life, knowing that my son was okay. And all of a sudden I started to get shivers. I felt really sick. I didn't feel good at all. And I knew every time that I would get shivers is because I had like an infection, or like I was sick or something. And from Mr. Google, Dr. Google told me that I had an infection. And I was like, I have a C-section. I haven't been taking care of myself. I haven't been resting. I've been a mess for almost a month, going back and forth to see my son, to be with my son. And I didn't know what was going on. And I remember I told the nurses, like, I don't feel well. And if you have a temperature, you're not allowed to come in for a day. And so I told them, I don't have a temperature, but I don't feel well, and the next day, the whole night, I was tossing and turning. I was super hot, sweating, and I felt really ill, and I didn't know what was going on. And I told my mom, like, hey, like, can someone check my temperature? I couldn't even talk. I was so sick. My sister had to call the NICU and tell them that I wasn't able to come because I had a high fever. I was like 102 or something. So there was no way they were going to let me in because they check you when you come through the door. And I couldn't even drive. I was shivering. I was so sick. I was throwing up. Even my sister's dog was in the room with me, and he knows he wasn't allowed in my room, and he would not leave my sight. For 2 days, I was dying in my room, shivers, sweats, everything. And finally, I decided to go to the hospital, and I went to the same hospital I had my son in. And when I got there, I told them I'm sick, like I don't feel well, and I don't know what's going on. The stitches in my cesarean started popping. Um, I couldn't really see down there. I mean, I could, but I was afraid to look. And I knew I had an infection. I knew I was sick. And I ended up going to the hospital. They checked me, and I had an infection. I was going sepsis, and it was already spreading in my stomach into my blood. And I remember they gave me morphine as soon as they took me back. And the doctors kept, like, the staff was apologizing to me. They're like, we're sorry we didn't get you in sooner. I waited an hour to go back. And I remember being like in and out of it because I was just so sick. And at the time, my boyfriend, my son's dad, I told him, go with the baby. Like, you haven't seen the baby lately. Just go. I'm fine. Like, they'll take care of me. And they took me upstairs. They started giving me IVs. They started doing all these things. And they're like, oh, we're calling surgeons. Surgeons are going to be here. And I was like, do you know how long it's going to take? And they're like, yeah. They're like, he should be here soon. And I remember I was like so like in and out of it. I had court the next day for for my daughters. So their dad, like, he was something else. But anyways, I was like, I got court in the morning and there's no way anyone's taking my kids. And I started popping things off of me. And the nurse was like, you gotta sit down, like, no. And I was like, call my mom, like, no. And the only person I will ever listen to was my mother. Like, it was just something about, your mom. You have to listen to your mom. So my mom and my sister show up, and my mom's like, you gotta relax. Like, they're gonna make us a paper for court. Like, you're gonna be fine. And I was like, no, you don't understand how he is. Like, you know what he's gonna do. And she's like, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. And after that, I don't remember nothing. I had almost 4 different surgeries in 2-3 days. I missed all of Thanksgiving in the hospital unconscious. I had tubes in my mouth. I had things coming out of places, and I was just clinging for my life. And I remember I thought I was going to die. I knew I was going to die. And I remember just apologizing and asking God to take care of my children, to please send someone to take care of them, to love them, to just do better than I could do. And I don't know if it was like them rolling me through the like hallway or what it was, but I see this really, really bright light. And it's like coming in and out, and they're like flashes of light. And I remember I was like going towards the light because it was peaceful that way and it was nice. And all I hear is my name being called by my daughter. And she's like, Mom, Mommy. And that's what woke me up. And when I woke up, I had a tube coming out of my mouth, and I had oxygen and all these other things. And I tried to move and start pulling things out because that's your first reaction. And I had already seen things like this from my job and things that I've experienced, and I was like, what's going on? And I just remember the nurse like jumping on top of me and trying to explain to me what was going on. And I'm telling her like, no, and I have this tube in my mouth. I can't talk. I can't say anything. And she gave me a paper. I was able to write like, like what's going on? Like, help me. Like, am I dead? Like, what's going on? And she just explained to me that I had surgeries, had the doctor come in, and then all I can hear her say is like, she shouldn't be awake. The medicine's not working. She shouldn't be awake. Like, she has enough morphine to keep her sleeping. And the whole time, like, I'm just writing notes as best as I can, and I'm telling her like, I'm in pain. I'm hurting. Like, like I can't do this. Like, what's going on? And my mom came and she's trying to explain to me that when I'm in pain to push the button, that the button's going to give me medicine. And the nurse told my mom, you can't press the button for her. And I remember my mom putting the button in my hand and helping me push the button. And she just kept pushing it and pushing it. And they're timed, so I wasn't getting all this extra medicine. It was just like, I don't know, her comfort maybe. And at that moment, I knew what the pastor meant, because I took over my son's sickness so he could live, and I fought his battle. At least that's how I took it. That's what was placed in my heart. And I remember being in the hospital for almost a month. I had about a 16-inch hole in my lower abdomen. I couldn't walk correctly. I couldn't do things by myself. I couldn't use the restroom. I needed help. And when I got home, my sister was watching my baby. She was taking care of him between her and my mom. And she would help me shower. She would help me use the bathroom. And finally, like, somebody was taking care of me. It wasn't the best, but it was really nice to have her support me and help me and be there for me, because I really needed someone. And my whole life, I had been taking care of everybody. Not once had I taken a day off for myself or enjoyed life. I had people, coworkers, and like, let's go out, let's do this, and I just couldn't go. I couldn't do this, and my kids, my siblings, my mom, and it was always one thing after another. And after I went home, like, I recovered, everything was okay. And the doctor told me, like, just take it easy. Like, remember, you're a diabetic. It's going to take you longer to heal from the inside. And of course, I don't listen, like always. And I went back to work. I started working. I started doing stuff. And, you're a mom, so you're always working. And I had people relying on me and my money. So I needed to go back out there and continue to, like, hustle, I guess, the best that I could. But I had told God, if you save my son, I will give my life to you. I will praise you every minute of the day, and I will read my Bible, and I will be the first one at church. I didn't do that. I just said things because I thought I was going to do them, and I promised myself I was going to do them. But because life kept getting in the way, I wasn't making room for God, and I wasn't allowing Him to work in my life the way that I told Him I wanted to be there for Him. And so again, like, my life was chaotic again, and everything was falling apart, and my boyfriend wasn't as faithful as I thought he would be, like, it was just one thing after another, and I had court and all this. It was just hard, really, really hard. And I tried to go to church, and we were off and on going to church and stuff. And I was used to always Spanish church. That's how I grew up. But my boyfriend was like, he understood English more than Spanish. So for him, comfort was more, and I wanted him to understand. And we were constantly going in and out of church. And there was times where I would receive the word and I knew that was for me. And there was times where I was like, God, like, I know you're there, but like, I can't catch a break. Like, I just want to be free one time in my life. Like, I want to live like a person, like what I'm supposed to. I don't want these extra responsibilities or nothing like that. I just want to live and be happy one day. And he told me nothing. I wasn't getting answers. And so slowly, my mom started to get more sicker. She was on dialysis. I would take care of her from home with her dialysis. I taught my oldest daughter how to connect her and disconnect her from her machine from the home dialysis that we're doing. And my daughter was like 8 or 9, and she picked up quick. And she said, like, Mom, I'm gonna be a dialysis doctor so I can save my sunshine, because that's what they called my mom. And she's all like, my mom was like, yeah, be a doctor. And I remember my mom was always so encouraging towards the children, and so loving to them. And I just was like so overwhelmed with work and responsibilities from my home. And slowly, like, my brother had enlisted into the army, and he was already being shipped out. And all that was left was my mom and my younger sister. She was like, all over the place sometimes, but she stayed with me until she passed away. About six years ago now, almost. And the day my mom passed away, it was kind of funny. We're not serious people because of all the problems and things that we've gone through. So we joke about everything. We can never be serious about anything at all. And when we went to take her to the hospital, she told the nurse that was taking care of her, she was like, I'm not cheap. I charge a lot. And he was like, what do you mean? And she's like, you don't get free shows here. I charge. I'm expensive. He's all like, oh, he got the joke. And he's all like, how much? She's like, 25 cents. And he's all like, okay. He goes like, then I'll give you 50 cents. And he's all like, so I can see you tomorrow too. And like, it was just like, we were all joking in there. We didn't believe my mom was going to pass away because multiple times they had told us she's not going to make it. And this lady was like a cockroach. She never died. You know how many times we're in the hospital? We like basically lived there. It was our second home. And she didn't die. She would be like, oh, everything's better now. And I'm like, what the? I was like, oh, what's this game you're playing? And the doctors told us she's not going to make it through the night. It's better you call your family, let them know. I called my older brother. I let him know, hey, mom's not going to make it. He cussed me out, told me a bunch of messed up things. And I was like, well, it's up to you if you want to show up or not. And then I started calling my other siblings, let them know what's going on. And then somehow the whole family ended up there, like my mom's side of the family. And it turned into the morning, and we were there, and the doctors are like, yeah, we're going to take her into surgery for in an hour or so. Two things are going to happen. One, she's going to be a vegetable when we're done, or two, she's going to pass on the operating table. And my mom told them she's my POA. She knows what to do. And we always talked about like what we were going to do at her funeral, that what we were going to do when she passed away, how I was going to give away her things. And we would always joke about it and make funny stories about what we were going to do at her funeral. We were going to throw ourselves and roll around and, just make a party out of it. And she ended up not passing away how the doctor said. We were in the room with her, and I was taking turns with my family to let them in. And something inside of me didn't want to do it, but I had this other voice that was telling me, let them. And it wasn't like a regular voice. It was God, I'm assuming. I know it was him, because I didn't want to give up my space in that room because that was my mom. I had raised her. I had taken care of her my whole entire life, and it wasn't fair that I had to give up my spot so the family can say their goodbyes when they didn't care about her, when they didn't do nothing for her. And my older brother and my sister, my mom's biological children, they're like, I'm not getting out of here. I'm staying in this room. And so I have to give up my space so everyone can come in like one by one or whatever. And I remember I wasn't supposed to be there. The nurse had called me because they needed my mom's medical history. And so I got called to the back, and I answered her questions, and I told them like they're going to talk to me with anything regarding her surgery or whatever. And my mom's like, come here. And I go over there, and she was like, you need to pull me up. And I was like, okay. And since I was a CNA, I needed to use my CNA assistance, my skills. And I remember lowering the bed. And as I'm lowering the bed, the machines start to go like down, and they start to make all the noises. And I'm like, what's going on? And this nurse kind of shoves me, and she starts right away looking at the monitors, and she starts calling out all these codes. And then you hear it on the thing, on the speakers. And then she gets this board, sticks it under my mom, starts doing chest compressions. They start trying to bring her back to life. She was passing away. And I guess she told my sister, when the sun comes out, I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go. And I guess she passed away. And that's how she called it, and that's how she went. She died on May 7th, and she passed away at 7. So, yeah. And it was hard watching them try to do all these compressions and give her the thing to bring her back. And no matter how many times they did it, the doctor kept looking at the whole entire family that at this point was all in the room, my cousins, my aunts, my brother, my uncles. They were all there just watching her, and this doctor was just looking at me. And I was like, just in my head praying and telling God, like, if it's her time, then take her. She's suffered enough. She's been through enough. I'm okay. Like, we're going to be okay. Like, it's fine. And she passed away, and he's all like, is it okay if I call it? And I was like, yes, you did enough. Thank you. I appreciate all your help and everything you did. I quickly ran to my mom. I tried to hug her. She had a tube in her mouth. She had all these weird things coming out. And yeah, she didn't pass away like peacefully because of all the stuff they did to her, but she did pass away peacefully because when the sun came out, that's when they took her breath and she left. And the rest of the family came, said their goodbyes. We got to stay in the room with her for a long time, which was very nice of those nurses. And a lot of them came and hugged us and cried. And I just remember praying and asking God to please rest her soul and let her join his kingdom, because she deserved that. She had sacrificed a lot for us. And even though to me she wasn't the best mom, she was a mom. And she gave me life, and she was there for my children. That I appreciate her for that. But I did have a lot of resentment towards her and a lot of anger and different emotions. But God took that away too. Like, regardless of the times that I have done bad and I was not faithful to God and I doubted him and I said so many dumb things, he was always there. He never left me. And even though I thought I was suffering, it's nothing compared to what he took when, he rescued us. So the excitement that I feel in my life now, everything I went through was worth it, I guess. I mean, it wasn't, but to me, like, who I am today is not who I was then. And in the end of last year, I started like trying to listen more to Christian gospel and listen to sermons and stuff, because I was feeling that calling. And one day I heard this podcast, and it was a man, Johnny Chang, and he gave his testimony. And I was like, hey, that sounds like mine. Like, he's like almost like me, or I'm almost like him, because I think he's older. But I was like, wow, like I could relate to him so much. And I felt like, man, he's brave. Like, he's really brave. And I loved it. And I had this like urge that I needed God in my life. And I remember pulling over, praying, just putting my hands up and asking God, like, this is you. I know it's you. Like, I love you. Like, I want you to be in my life. I want to give myself to you, and I'm ready. I'm ready for this. And I just cried. I cried so much. And afterwards, I was like brand new. Like, everything that has ever happened to me didn't matter. Nothing had mattered. And I didn't care about who did me wrong, who hated me, who disliked me, who whatever. Who cares? Like, the happiness that I feel in my heart, no one can take that away. And ever since that day, I started only listening to Christian music. Every time I would change the station or put something else on, I was getting annoyed. And I felt like I wasn't myself anymore. And I remember I had gone through so much other things after my mom passed and things like that. And I was just like, oh, I'm done with life. Like, I sometimes wanted to just like go out. Like, I just like, take me now, Lord, but I have children, so that wasn't an option. But I thought about it. But when God came into my life that day, it was like the most amazing thing I had ever experienced. And that same day when my husband got home, because we got married, and we've been together for a while now, almost 12 years. And I told him, I need to go to church. I was like, either you're coming with me or you can stay home. I was like, but I'm going with or without you. And he's like, let's go. And I was like, huh? Like, are you sure? He's all like, yeah, I'll go with you. And I was like, where do you want to go? I was like, I know your Spanish isn't that great. So I was like, do you want to go to where we've been going? Like here and there. And he's all like, yeah, let's go. And so we started going like towards the end of December of last year. And we have not really missed any days unless like we have to work or something. But we try not to miss any days. And my son and my husband and my daughters got baptized, so they accepted God, and it was like a beautiful experience seeing watching them go through that. And when we're at church and we're like praising God and stuff, I see my daughters, and it's like it's beautiful. Like it's really, really beautiful. I love it. Like just watching them sing and just like get in the, in the rhythm of things, and having them be out of their comfort zone and talking to other people that not just me or their friends, and having the other people from the church like welcoming you in. There's a particular lady there that she felt made me feel very welcome, and I guess she is the women's pastor there. And she would always like so happy, like, oh, I'm so glad you made it. And she has this like really like nice voice and like very exciting to see you there. And I was like, man, this lady's weird. Like, why is she like that, And I was like, maybe she has like ADD or something. I don't know. And then I was like, no, that's just like she's so welcoming. Like she makes me feel welcome, and I want to be there. Like she wants me to be there too. Like, and it just felt exciting to go because a lot of the people were so inviting and like, hey, and I'm not a hugger. I hate hugs. But going to church, I give hugs now. Like I'm a hugger, which is weird. And even my kids are like, Mom, like, you hugged that lady like 3 times. I was like, she wouldn't stop hugging me. Like, I was like, whatever, going with the flow. And my hugs were like those awkward side hugs. And now I'm like, hey, like, how are you? And like, I'm excited to be there. I'm excited to wake up Sunday mornings and go to church and get ready and do all these things that I'm supposed to do. Like I'm excited. But the moment that my we were at church, and my husband was like kind of into it, but like kind of high and cold, like looked a little bored. And I remember he had put his hands up and he was praying, and I had just finished praying, and I look over to him and he's like kind of doing this slowly with his hand, and I place my hand on his side, and I'm like fill him with the Holy Spirit. I was like, God, I was like, make him feel your love and your presence, set him on fire. My husband starts shaking uncontrollably, starts crying his eyes out. And at that moment, I fell in love with him all over again. I loved him like there was no tomorrow. Like he accepted God. Like God came into him, or the Holy Spirit. I don't know, I'm still learning. But he was like crying. He was so excited. And I was like, man, God, like your powers are real. Like I could not, like, I don't know how to explain it. Like I just love him so much. And that day made me fall in love with him all over again. But this time for real, it's like I was able to forgive him for some of the things we had been through, and things that I was holding on to, and would sometimes throw it in his face. And I could be mean sometimes, and I know I say a lot of hurtful stuff, but I've been hurt and I feel the hurt. And so I was very like sometimes resentful towards him and was very mean. And he still loved me anyway. So like, and that's what marriage is about. You go have your good days, your bad days. And now that we're both giving our lives to God, like it's beautiful. It's nice, and I love to hear his stories and the ones my daughters have to say, and my son. And about 6 years ago, my son got heart surgery, and he had a heart murmur, and he had 3 holes in his heart. And he got surgery, and it was the worst time because my mom had just passed away. My son got surgery, and I was turning 30. And I told God, if my son dies, like we're done. Like I'm just gonna go kill myself right now. I'm gonna jump off this building at the hospital. And luckily, everything turned out fine. My son went home in like 2 days. Everything was good, very beautiful. And recently, we went to a follow up after 6 years. And the doctor told my son, "What are you doing here?" And my sons are like, "Oh, you gotta tell me about my heart if it's good or not." And he goes like, "There's nothing wrong with your heart." He goes, "I don't see nothing. It's like nothing ever happened to you." And he's all like, "Get out of here. You're healed. You're fine." And my sons are like, "Yeah, God saved me." And the doctors are like, "No, the doctors did." And my son is not the one to be disrespectful or say anything bad or nothing. He's very, well spoken. And he's all like, "No, God did it." And the doctor, before he can say anything, I was like, "Oh, thank you so much. Like, I appreciate your time. Like, thank you." Like, I was just speechless because number one, my son said, "God saved me." And number two, like, my son was healed. Like, you got me, I healed. Like, prayers work. Getting on your knees works. Just giving yourself to him works. And I feel that I am living proof of that. There was so many times I wanted to just end my life and just give myself up and not care about who I hurt or what I did. And now I'm good. Like, I love my life. I enjoy everything more. I'm a hugger. And I love it. Like, there is nothing that you can do to like hurt my feelings. Like, I'm ugly. That's nice. You don't like me? Okay. Like, all right. Like, I don't care. Like, I only care about one thing, and that is making my God happy, because he's the only one that's going to save me at the end of the day. So I'm just so excited to be living life and doing everything I can. And, no matter how bad you think your life is or how bad the storm is, like, there's always light. There's, as long as you believe and you trust God and you do what you got to do for him, like, he's faithful and he loves you. So I'm just excited that I hope, my story could help somebody, or maybe they're feeling the same way I did, or anything like that. And I know as moms, like, we're always stressed out, and there's times that we just like want to blow up on our kids. But before we do that, we should just say like a little prayer or just talk to God, because he listens, like, trust me, I know I have teenagers, and they're all over the place, and I'm just like, "God, like, please help me, like, I can't." And then, like, I kind of feel the mood kind of shifting, and I'm like, all right. I was like, that's all I had to do. All I had to do was ask God, and he's like, "Yeah, like, let me move them real quick," And I was like, man, this is amazing. Like, I love this. So, I hope everyone has a blessed day, and thank you for your time.